Alright, this is Algebra 2, Lesson 30, using the discriminant. So, we've been talking about factoring or solving quadratic equations. We talked about solving by factoring, solving by taking the square root, solving by graphing, solving by completing the square, and then solving by quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula we learned yesterday, but we need to know how many solutions there are sometimes when we look at a math problem like this. Because eventually you need to go back to graphing these, and when we graph quadratics, they kind of look like this. They look like a U, or they look like this, and we know that whenever it crosses the x-axis, these are your answers. But sometimes it doesn't cross the x-axis, and graphing takes a lot of work, so we want to know how many answers we have. We know that a quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, and we know that there are two answers on all these because the largest exponent is squared, but sometimes it's the same answer twice, sometimes it's two real answers, and sometimes it's two imaginary answers. So the question is, how do we know that? And we're going to talk about this thing called the discriminant, and we're just going to focus on this part of the quadratic formula, just b squared minus 4ac. So that's all you need to do for this lesson is that. So here are the steps for today. Pause the video now. A couple big things to notice is that once you calculate the discriminant, if the amount is positive, then there are two real solutions. If the amount is 0, then there is only one real solution, and if the amount is negative, then there are two imaginary solutions. Okay. Here we go. So, numbers 1 and 2. First thing, of course, make sure A, B, and C are in the correct order. Number 1, it's not. We need to move these constants over to the right, so we have to add 4 to both sides. So we got 2v squared plus 4v plus 2 is equal to 0. A is equal to 2. B is equal to 4. And C is equal to 2. So we're going to focus just on the discriminant, so it's b squared minus 4ac. So we have b squared, which is 4 squared, is 16, minus 4 times a is 2, and c is 2. Multiplying negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. So we have 16 minus 16, which is equal to 0. So looking on our steps, we know if the discriminant is 0, we have only one real solution. That's how you do number 1. And what this means that is if we're going to graph this, which we're going to look at tomorrow, when we're going to graph this, the graph will only touch the x-axis once. It'll look something like this. Or it just touches the x-axis once. Okay, it won't cross over, but it does touch once over here. Okay, the second one, number 2, we have negative 6x squared minus 10x minus 2 is equal to 7. Again, we have to move our constants over. We're going to subtract 7 on both sides. When we do that, we get negative 6x squared minus 10x minus 9 is equal to 0. A is equal to negative 6, B is equal to negative 10, and C is equal to negative 9. So this one's a little bit more difficult. So you got b squared minus 4ac is our discriminant formula. And we just plug in our numbers. B squared is negative 10 squared, which is 100, minus 4 times A is negative 6, C is negative 9. Okay, working this out, we have negative 4 times 6 is negative 20, or positive 24. Okay, bring the rest of the problem down. And then 24 times negative 9 is negative 216. And then we solve that 100 minus 216 is negative 116. Okay, this is the discriminant amount. So what this tells us, it's negative. So since it's a negative one, we know it's going to be in the square root sign. Whenever we have a negative square root, we're dealing with imaginary solutions. So we would say this one has two imaginary solutions. Two imaginary solutions. And that's the end of this lesson. So if you needed help, just look at this again. And that's it.